Hey everyone, it has been a minute, but Rip City Real Talk is back. Anthony Blaylock, Craig Moshko, your hosts. Yeah, we took some time off. We wanted to redo some of the format that we've been putting out there instead of doing weekly recaps and covering on games that you guys saw a week ago. That really is kind of pointless. You wanted to just focus more on impactful Blazers news, rumors, trends, etc. So we might start going a little longer in between podcasts to be able to put out some better stuff because quite frankly, I don't think anybody truly cares about the weekly recaps. You guys are watching the games. You're seeing the box scores. You're checking out highlights. You know what happened. We're really going to break down the overall picture of the team and start trying to focus on that a little bit more. I think that's the plan going forward. So not a weekly interval like we used to do.
Yep, and I was on vacation, and we'd just been dealing with all this stuff, and then Dame's injury comes up, and it's just been kind of a tough stretch for the Blazers, so we figured we'd retool the content a little bit. How's everything going in your world, though?
Good, man. Got the Packers just chilling, waiting for their first round of the playoffs. So that's been fun. As everybody knows, I'm a Packer fan, so this is the year. I know it. I just feel it. I hate playing the 49ers because we're 0-3 against them, and I just
Old
in the
scars.
playoffs. So,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, everything else has been pretty solid.
Good.
Looking forward to getting back into some Blazers content. We have a lot to cover. I don't know how long it's going to take us to cover, but we're excited to get into it.
Yeah, I think so. You and I early on in the season kind of disagreed a little bit. I felt like we should shut Dame down for a month and get him healthy. And you were like, if you do that, we'll fall too far out of standings. And then, of course, now we've fallen out of standings with Dame. So they decided to shut him down. He had surgery on the 13th. He's going to be reevaluated in 6 weeks. What did you think of that?
Yeah, the 6 to 8 week timetable. And I really think there was some discussion about shutting them down permanently. They were going to get to that depending on where things were. Well, all we went ahead and did was just improve our record and throw ourselves right back in the 10th in the West. I don't get it. You beat the Nets a couple times now. I mean, you beat up on some bad teams who you should be. We just took care of Orlando recently, Washington, who's actually been pretty decent. But I mean, we talked about really trying to get that lottery pick, and you lose that if you make the playoffs. Like, it's gone, right? It's protected for the lottery. Otherwise, if we make playoffs, it goes to somebody else. I really thought this was a chance to get one of those high picks. We talked about tanking in our last podcast, and we're like, hey, you know what, Dame, this is the perfect excuse, right? Dame can't sit here and say, oh, I'm just not playing good at whatever. They're shutting them down. This is every opportunity that you've wondered about as far as getting the draft pick. Like, are they going to tank? And I feel kind of like we probably should. But they're not. They're just not doing it. They're out here winning games, and it's fun. Don't get me wrong; it's exciting to watch. But I do think that there's a golden opportunity here to really rest Dame up and have the team kind of sink back and get a good lottery pick, top 10 pick potentially. And who knows? Still a long season, but we're not looking like we're trending that direction anymore.
It's definitely tough. So in Dame's absence, Anthony Simons has been ridiculous over the last 2 weeks, which is great because the pod we recorded before this, we did a lot of discussion about Ant, right? Like whether we would trade him, whether we think he's coming up for a contract extension, how much we'd be willing to pay him. And it's really difficult when you already have two starting guards that are almost all-star caliber to find a spot for Anthony Simons in the roster or in the rotation where he's going to get viable minutes and play a viable role other than six-man off the bench or whatever Anthony Simons may do. But he has been ridiculous. Have you seen the numbers he's put up over the last 2 weeks while we were on vacation?
Yeah, I mean, I have. He's really just been shooting the ball ridiculously well from three. So he's taking advantage of Dame being out. Oh, you kind of wonder what was going to happen, right? We knew that Dame was gonna get hurt or rest, and once we found that out, we're like, okay, CJ's already out. He's been out with an injury, so it's going to come down to Anthony Simons, and it's going to come down to Norman Powell to really lead this team. But you look here, I mean, the one thing that really stands out to me, especially recently, has just been the threes. I mean, he's had multiple games. Look at that, 5, 6, 9. 7 and 7 a couple times. I mean, he's been shooting ridiculous, almost 40%. And that's where he's doing a majority of his damage. But it was going to be kind of an interesting side of things to see where somebody else stepped up. Because, again, we knew that we weren't going to have a Damian Lillard out there who's already a shot volume taker. And with CJ, we were already kind of struggling to find somebody else to take over outside of, honestly, of CJ and Dame. And I don't know. I didn't think he'd come out and play like this, honestly. Like, I knew that he was going to get big minutes and he's going to get a lot of volume, but I don't think I expected him to play like this because he's been so inconsistent in other starts throughout the year.
He's been he's been inconsistent in some of these games as well, but when he gets the actual minutes and he has an offensive role, I've been surprised mostly with his assist numbers, but you hit it on the head actually yesterday when we were kind of prepping for the pod. You basically said he's been really relying on the 3-ball. So I went and looked this up, right? And I'm looking at the stats today. In all the games where Anfernee Simons has scored 28 plus points, in every single one of those games, he's made 5+ threes and shot at least 11 threes. So he requires a high volume of those threes to sort of get going. And like you said, when he shoots 40-50% from three, yeah, he's going to drop 28 to 33 points. And Anfernee Simons has been stepping up in Dame's absence. I just kind of wonder what's the ceiling here. I mean, how sustainable is this? Because he is a really inconsistent player at times.
Well, I do think it's sustainable. I mean, the assists alone, like you pointed out, are one of the biggest things that's keeping them on the floor and really opened up his level of game. We talked about this for years. He was always kind of touted to be the backup point guard on this team, really behind Dame and CJ, and he has not thrived in that role. I mean, they went out and got Dennis Smith, and they've really been better when they've had some other point guards on this team like Curry and Shabazz Napier and those guys. So Amp was kind of always in that position where it's like he's almost forced to be this backup point guard.
Yeah.
And I haven't really been overly impressed. We haven't seen him pass the ball and make the right move very consistently. So to see him come out and get the assist numbers is why I think it's super sustainable. I don't know if his shot's always going to fall. I mean, he didn't look super great against the Magic, but at the same time, I do think that he's now opened up the game where he can run an offense, and that's going to give him a lot of opportunities to continue to get good looks and a lot of volume. Now, the thing interesting, pull that back up for me. I want to see the Orlando game because that was the first game that we got CJ back, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. But it's interesting to see. Granted, CJ didn't play his full complement of minutes, but arguably one of his worst games that he's had, 4 of 11 shooting, 0 of 5. I mean, he had the assist numbers, but he played 35 minutes. So you're already starting to see, honestly, somewhat of the impact that not getting all that volume that he had. I mean, he only got up 11 shots in this game compared to 21, 24, 17. You know what I mean? It's no coincidence that he's not getting the volume and his play went down. I feel like he's a very streaky player. He comes in and gets momentum in certain games, and that's kind of what carries him. I believe it was the Cleveland game where he barely did anything at half. And then it came out in the third quarter, and I think he poured like 21
he
points
went ballistic in that quarter. Yeah. I don't know. It's difficult. I agree with you, but that's kind of the nature of the Blazers anyway. When Dame takes over, CJ often takes a back seat. And so I think it's going to help with CJ coming back and playing a more complement of minutes. I just don't think Anfernee Simons is an alpha point guard. I don't think he's going to be able to run and facilitate an offense night in and night out. Now, Dame, you can tell that Anfernee Simons has learned a lot from Dame about how to play and how to sort of pull a defense gravitationally to him and make passes out of it. He's been brilliant. I mean, Anfernee Simons had 7 assists or 6 assists in 3 of his first 4 games, and then he had 11. I didn't really know Anfernee Simons could do all that, so I am interested to see what's going to happen, but I still don't think that you can re-sign him and retain him with as many guards as we have on this team.
Well, yeah, and that's going to be
a
big topic of discussion here coming up because of the trade deadline is February 10th. Like, that's going to come here faster than people think. And the way he's been showing out, I mean, he becomes an extremely valuable asset. He might even be a better asset than CJ, which is kind of crazy to say. But with CJ's age and contract, Anfernee Simons almost becomes a guy that you might be able to go get one of these contracts back. Yeah. The problem is money. I mean, if anybody you're going to bring back with Anfernee Simons, you're not going to have the money to bring back unless you include a lot into it. So that's kind of where CJ is still the more likely trade guy. But I don't know. I mean, it's interesting because you brought it up. Like, his contract's up at the end of this year. Okay.
It's impossible.
I think we're in the same situation that we were in last year with Gary Trent, right? We talked about it. Like, is he going to be worth giving 17, 18, 19 mil to? If you don't trade CJ, especially if you don't trade CJ, You got Norman Powell at 18, 19 mil. Dame just keeps going up, and CJ is going to keep going up for the next couple of years. You almost cannot afford to actually bring Anthony Simons back. So
yeah, I'm with you.
It gets very interesting. It really does, because if you trade CJ, even if you trade CJ, depending on what you bring back, I mean, we're going to talk about some rumors that have been out there recently, but if you trade him, now what do you do? I mean, do you move Norman Powell to the 2, which is probably a better fit for him? I really wish the spotlight would stop turning off. I'm just gonna ride in the dark.
Do it.
Shadow. So I mean, you probably move Norman Powell to the 2, and then you bring back. Oh, ideally, you're bringing back a forward, or you're bringing back a center. You're doing something that's probably going to shift some stuff around. And I just don't think that Simons cracks the starting lineup, even if you traded CJ. And I know a lot of people out there like, oh, well, he's better than Norman Powell. There's arguments to be made there. But at the end of the day, Powell's got the contract. He's a better defensive player, and he's probably better suited to be at the 2. And he's really not played bad. He's been shooting really good lately. His points have been fine, averaging 22 over the last week and a half or so when he's actually been on the court. And it's a week and a half worth of games. He has been hurt. But I just don't see a world where you can pay Anthony Simons more than $10 million a year right now. And maybe you can pull that off. Maybe you can get him to stay for 2-3 years. And then by that time, CJ's contract is up, or you move off of him. And who knows? You know, at that point, Powell's contract is potentially up, and then you give Amp the big money to be your future. But it's going to be really, really, really concerning and convoluted with the contracts. If you don't make a big move and get rid of one of these big contracts, you're probably not going to be able to keep Anthony. If he gets the open market, somebody will give him a lot of money. And is he willing to turn down that money to take a lesser deal to stay in Portland, where he's going to be the 3rd guard at this point?
It's so funny to me because you look at a team like Orlando or the Knicks or whoever, these teams cannot find point guards. And we have an abundance of these guards that can take 20 shots, give you 30 points. Even CJ and Anthony can give you 7 assists consistently night in and night out. And we have so many of them that we can't even figure out how to play them all at the same time. It's like, it's the weirdest conundrum for the Blazers to deal with every single year is what guards they're going to deal and which guards they're going to keep. And I don't see how, like you said, you're going to be able to retain and pay Anthony. But CJ did come back this week. He's coming back. He had his kid. Everything looks really healthy and great. And CJ comes back after a pretty extended break. I feel like the Blazers were very cautious, especially with COVID. Yeah, with COVID and the lung issue that he had. The collapsed lung is no joke. But CJ came back, and what do you think of his sort of first game back, that Orlando game?
He looked fine. I mean, conditioning is going to be there. You know, he's going to be able to play his full allotment of minutes here in no time. But, I mean, I saw him make some plays, some little shimmies, some great-looking floaters. You know, his crossover looks good. He's getting around screens just like he always did. So I don't see any issue in his play at all. And that's great. I mean, we need an extra scoring punch because – you don't have Dame. And as good as Anthony's been, you really need another guy that can come out here and get his own shot and score. So it's good or bad depending on your perspective of whether or not you want this team to tank. I mean, realistically, it's kind of what you're looking at. For me, I'm ready to trade a majority of these players, blow it up, retool, and you're not going to get a better chance the rest of Dame's prime. But I mean, it's great that CJ's coming back. And this, you know, we talked about watching Anthony when we found out that Dame was going to have the surgery and he was going to sit. You really said, okay, no CJ, no Dame. We got to see what Anthony's going to do. Like, this is a big deal. And we were a little weary of it because of his inconsistency starting before.
Right. And
all he did was come out and blow it up. And now CJ is back. And now we've seen Anthony's worst game since the two of them were both out together.
It's so now
we're right back to that conversation where we need to start watching what Anthony's going to do. Is he going to continue to be a 20-point-a-night guy because that's really what he has to be, or is he going to lose his volume? The CJ playing his full allotment to minutes, and is he going to start to struggle if he's not getting consistent looks? If he's not, you know, as they put it, staying hot, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a big thing. You know, a big thing to watch if you're a Portland fan is whether or not you think Anthony can play with not only just Dame or you know, CJ, but either one of them. It doesn't make a difference. But if he can be that second guy, whether or not you're deciding to keep Norman Powell at the 3 if you decide to trade CJ.
It's an issue right now, but I do think that in the short term, the Blazers need Anthony and CJ to ball out, because if you're going to trade Anthony, you need to make a tantalizing offer where he's going to be either a majority of the trade or a big piece in the trade. He's this young asset that somebody's going to acquire. With CJ, you really need him to show that he's healthy and can play a full allotment of minutes if some contender is just going to come swoop him up in a trade. I know that his contract is ugly and with the aging part of his game. But right now in the short term, I don't think that either one of them playing well hurts the Blazers unless you're talking about winning too many games. And that's the hot topic right now with Blazers Twitter, Blazers Edge, wherever you're at and you're talking Blazers. It's how much winning is too much winning, and should we tank?
Yeah, I mean, you've already slipped back up to 10, which means you're in the playoff bubble. You'd have to win both games and get a little lucky, but
yeah, I want to
you're in the playoff bubble. I keep calling it the playoff bubble because they brought this up in the bubble.
I feel like it's the playoff play-in bubble too. I call it that too.
I don't know why I keep doing that, but yeah, I mean, you can see right here we're still a ways down from catching anybody else in the West that's above. I mean, you're still for what?
3 games out at least of the Wolves.
9.
And the other thing is the Clippers and Lakers should only keep improving. I think the Timberwolves are just scratching the surface on what they can do, and the Kings are tied with us. I mean, not tied in losses, but in wins. So I don't know.
And the Kings technically have the tiebreaker. So that's where it gets fun. That's where it gets a little interesting because, I mean, chances of you getting – we've talked about this every single year that we've done the play-in tournament with the Blazers the last 2 years where they've been the 8th seed or the 9th seed or right in that. They're in that tournament. Doesn't matter if you win that, you lose overall because you have to play more games than anybody else going into playoffs. You have those 2 extra games, and you're immediately jumping out of that because there's no break because playoffs have a certain schedule. You're jumping right into the top team in the West. I mean, if you don't get swept, you're maybe getting a win.
It's ugly.
It doesn't seem worth it to me to play as hard as you need to play to get in there because you know what's going to happen, right? If they're in this position and they are legitimately playing to win, which as a franchise, you should always be playing to win. I get that.
Yeah.
But if you're in that position 6 to 8 weeks from now, if you're still hovering around 10, 11, 9, wherever you're kind of hovering, now you're talking about Dame coming back, right? Now it's like you have a chance at playoffs. So now we're going to rush Dame back. We're going to hurry up. Maybe not rush, but you're going to bring him back.
Push him.
And depending on trades and things that you've made, I mean, now you're probably not tanking. You're at that point where you're trying to make playoffs. And if you make the playoffs, if that's the case, because even the play-in tournament is no guarantee, you'd still have to win both games. I mean, at that point, you're out of lottery. You lose your draft pick, and then you're probably getting swept anyway, and you're in the middle of the pack, 16, 17, 18. That's your draft pick. And great.
Yeah. I think so with a lottery protected pick and where the Blazers would finish, which is like that 10 to 12 in the West range, I can't guarantee that player that they get is going to be a real asset. I mean, I think that's my biggest thing. I would almost rather, I don't want to push Dame back. I think Dame needs to take his time in getting healthy. They should take a very cautious approach with him because he's the franchise. I don't care if he's 32. I don't care if he's 33. They need to be cautious and bring him back slowly. But a lottery pick at this point, even if it is like the 8th overall pick or the 10th overall pick, Zach Collins was the 10th overall pick. Myers Leonard was the 11th overall pick. It doesn't necessarily mean that this franchise is going to be able to find a game changer in the next 2 years. I don't think that they're going to make any waves come playoff time, but if they have a chance, I'd rather they make the play in than just tank out. I just don't like tanking. It's weird karma stuff.
It's never good. And honestly, again, when you're a small market team, you kind of rely on playoff revenue. You rely on these extra games. It's a big deal. And especially with the shaky ownership right now, nobody knows what's going to happen with Jody Allen. I mean, you don't lose money, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I say you're always trying to get playoffs. It's not like you're some good team that can attract stars and you have some. It's not like you're Golden State at this point where you had a couple of injuries and it's like, okay, well, we'll just do bad and we'll go get Wiseman, right?
Yeah.
It's not how it's going to work. Like, you don't have Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Klay Thompson to bounce back with. You're not immediately a playoff contender when everybody's healthy. We've had everybody healthy for the last couple of years and we've been a mediocre team. So I agree with you. I think you kind of have to just try to win out. I don't know. I'm torn. I want to tank. Let's put it that way. I would like to tank, but I don't think that you should. Is that
With
a way to put it?
Yeah, no, I think it's fair. But the thing is, so with Chauncey, this is his first year coaching. We have 9 years straight of making the playoffs, and he just lost his boss a couple months ago in Neil. So now you're looking at he doesn't have the job security. He's going to want to go out there and win games. Anthony Simons is a dog. He wants to win games. Yusuf Nurkic does not like to lose. So I don't think this team can tank just in it's the way it's built. It's not in our DNA. And Dame sure as heck ain't going to sit there on the sidelines and accept that, as much as he may secretly want a lottery pick for assets. But I don't know. It's kind of a moot point. If this team doesn't move on from either Covington and or Nurkic, if they're not willing to deal some of these expiring deals and figure it out, then the tank may have to commence, because we may need that caliber player for the offseason.
Yeah, agreed. And that's going to be an interesting point going forward, because I mean, we're going to get obviously way more of the trade stuff down the road. Yeah. But for right now, the team's performance, again, as good as it's been with Anthony playing as hot as he has, I don't know if that lasts with CJ coming back. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how he plays with one of those other guys. And so I think that's going to determine, by the time we have our next pod and we have some games in here with CJ and Amp together, and we're about to get Norman Powell back. He's just going through some conditioning, so he's about to come back into the mix. It's going to be really weird to see where Anthony falls in line with two guys that are probably going to get more looks than him. I mean, him and Powell are probably pretty even, but I still think Powell's the go-to guy over Anthony. Maybe not my personal opinion, but I think that's what the team's going to look to do.
I think, like you're talking about, CJ and Norman Powell command a certain amount of shots, right? And so Anthony Simon's not just going to be able to go out there and create every single offensive possession. There's going to be times where he's going to have to defer shots. So I do think that you'll naturally see those numbers regress. The schedule is going to get a little bit tougher over the next week and a half than it has been. I feel like we caught the Nets at the right time. The Kings were pretty easy. So we'll see. But what about... Have you seen Yusuf Nurkic's stats lately? Like, have you pulled them up and looked at them?
Yeah, and he's been a huge bright spot. He's fighting to not get traded.
He's in his contract year, Nurk, dude. He leveled up to Bosnian Beast again.
Yep, we got Nurkic fever back. It's not just the stats per se, which have been amazing. Yeah. It's how he's getting these stats. Again, he's got some looks now because there's no Dame. We haven't had Powell out there. CJ's really not. His first game back was the Magic, so he's had a lot of chance to eat down low. But it's the way he's doing it. He is playing bully ball. He is the bully. The Bosnian bully is my new nickname for him. He is punishing people. You like that? Yeah, the Bosnian bully. Hashtag. That's
hashtag.
I'm gonna have to get on the tweeters with that and really push that out.
So there. Bad at Twitter.
But no, you watch the game against the Magic. They couldn't put anybody out there. Robin Lopez, Mo Bamba, one of the Wagners. The Magic have a lot of Wagners. It doesn't matter who was on him. He was punishing them. The way he was punishing Clint Capella, the way he was punishing the Nets.
It's been really good.
It's been unreal. He's getting the ball. He still rushes more shots than I would like. I still feel like there's times where he just turns and throws a hook shot up. Maybe he thinks he's gotten fouled or whatever. But I'm still seeing more of the slow play from him. There goes the spotlight. And it lasts like 5 minutes.
I love it.
But he's just beating up on people. He's taking his time. They're getting him to look. And a lot of it to me has to do with it's not as flashy. It's not him trying to do all this crazy up top, pass the ball, move down on the run, pick and roll. He's getting the ball in a spot, and he is just bang, bang, hook shot.
I love it.
He's getting down low, and he's just they're hitting him down there where he does his most damage, and it's just old school center basketball.
Yes,
and I think that's been the biggest thing for me. He's also getting more rebounds for it. He feels more comfortable in the role that he's playing right now, and it's really showing in the stats.
It's good to see. I think my biggest thing with Nurk is, and I love Nurk, but I've been really critical of him this season especially, and it's not all his fault. A lot of it is, like you said, Nurkic is a traditional center. He's a banger. He's a big guy. He's a big body that you should keep probably down low, especially on the defensive end, and you should utilize as a rim protecting, shot blocking, big body, bullying people out of the paint. Chauncey is not using him that way, and I totally understand why. You want a more aggressive hedging, blitzing defense. We've talked about this all year. That's great. But the problem is Nurkic isn't designed for that. He's a semi truck and you're trying to drive him like a race car. It's just not something that's going to work. I think Chauncey needs to adapt the system a little bit more for when Nurkic is in there to play him down on hedges closer to the basket. There's no reason that Nurkic should be hedging all the way across the top of the 3-point line. That doesn't make logical sense. And I get what Chauncey's trying to do by putting pressure on ball handlers at the point of attack, at the pick and roll. But that's something that you should use Giannis for or Draymond for, and we don't have that type of hybrid defensive player. So I think Nurkic is balling out on both ends of the floor, and I think he could be even better defensively if we were using him more like Rudy Gobert or Hassan Whiteside in the past.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to be in the paint no matter what. I just don't see a world where Jusuf Nurkic is out there running around like some of those guys he listed. I think you can do that more with Larry Nance. Larry Nance, in my opinion, isn't as talented, but he's quicker and he's more athletic, and he has the ability to do some of that stuff, and you can run that with him. But Nurkic has been at his best so far in this stretch where he's just been chilling down low. You can see it. I mean, you look at the rebound numbers. They've gone up. You know why? Because he's down in the paint getting rebounds.
Thank you.
I just don't.
It's time to end this. Like, they got to figure it out.
Yeah, I don't see a world where you can really do anything else with him. And the big question with him is, again, you know, he's playing really, really good lately, but he's also in a role where he's getting more touches and he's getting more looks and he's playing more minutes because there was no Dame. There hasn't been a CJ. There hasn't been Powell. There hasn't been Nance. There hasn't been Zeller. I mean, all these guys have been out, and he's really just been taking advantage of really the only big body that we have. Right. So as soon as some of these guys start coming back and his touches go down, I mean, what kind of Nurk are we going to see? A lot of people online, I saw them talking about it, how inconsistent he's just been the last couple of years. You know, either his heart's not there, his energy's not there, he's in foul trouble, whatever. Right now he's balling because he's getting the opportunities. This is his chance to go out and shine. It's him and Anthony Simons, for goodness sakes. Like, of course Nurk's going to be that guy. We talked about him being the third best player. Somebody tried to tell me, no, Powell's the third best player. No, he's not. Nurk has been the third best player on this team for years when healthy. He's been touted as one of the big three guys on this team, and you're seeing why. So I don't know. I mean, he's going to be a really interesting name come trade deadline time, because you brought it up earlier. How much are we willing to pay Nurk at the end of the season? Like, if he keeps playing like this, it's almost detrimental to us because it's going to get him more money.
That's the thing in the past where, you know, Nurkic had the injury. He stayed pretty loyal to the Blazers. We paid him, I think, a really reasonable contract. $12 million a year for your starting center is a great way to save money. And I don't know how many teams in the league are going to pursue Jusuf Nurkic in a way that the Blazers can't match the offer, right? And when he's doing things like 20 rebounds and 22 points and 20 rebounds, that's really elite stuff. Now, it's not consistent. It's not every single night. But I do think that we've seen a revelation in Nurk this season where he's played pretty hard, especially since Dame has went out. It feels like he knows he needs to step it up a notch, and maybe that's contract year. Maybe that's just how Jusuf is wired, that it's just like he just kind of shows up really hard for stretches. But I think you'd have a hard time finding an upgrade, and that's something we've talked about for 6 straight months now. How are you going to upgrade that position? You're really not. And centers don't just grow on trees.
No, agreed. But at the same time, I don't think you need a top end center. If you can make a trade and you can bring back another scorer, if you can bring back a Jeremy Grant, who's obviously the top dog in the trade market right now, if you can bring back somebody else to get you a decent amount of points and really be a star level player, then you can throw out Bismack Biyombo. You know, you can throw out any of these big rebounds, get you 10 points a night, 10 rebounds, hopefully protect the paint good enough, whatever. High volume, or not high volume, but high field goal percentage. Just your generic center. They do grow on trees. They are everywhere. Now, you're not going to get a center that you can just run pick and roll with all game, and that you can throw down low and is going to be able to body you and get a hook shot. You know, the Valanciunas of the world, the Vucevic's of the world, like, those guys don't grow on trees. And obviously the superstar centers, it's a whole different breed. But Nurkic, you can go get a Steven Adams out there at this point. There's some guys that are out there that you can grab and you can fill in that role just to come out here and be a big body and really run other things. I mean, a lot of the offense has gone through Nurk. That's fine because of the pick and roll and his relationship with Dame. And defensively, you know, you see what he does when he's around the basket versus not. You can get any center to go around the basket and try to play that way. You'll be fine. I mean, they're out there. So I worry that Nurk's going to get money like Clint Capella, He's going to get money like Vucevic, like Valanciunas. He's in that tier to me. He's just below an all-star level. I don't think he's an all-star. I mean, he has moments where he could be, but I don't think that's his game. He's not, he's just not an all-star. But he's that next tier down. He Miles Turner, these guys are all kind of right in there where they put up good stats. They're good players in different ways. Granted, they have different attributes that are good, but they're all about that same price range. And that's probably still a little over what the Blazers can afford to pay Nurk. Now, the injuries have hurt him, obviously. And just the overall stat line is going to hurt him a little bit because, again, he's been used kind of as that third, fourth guy. So the last couple of years, it's been met. But when people see him play like this, to me, this is when you really need to look to trade him. Like, I just don't think you can bring him back. You got to go get a $5 to $10 million center and hope for the best.
It's really tricky because the guys that you mentioned, right? So Bismack Biyombo, you're talking about Miles Turner. So I think Sabonis has been rumored available for a couple months now. Every center does different things well. The problem with, and we just talked about it, the problem with this Chauncey system is Chauncey wants to play with a smaller center that can move faster and use their lateral agility to attack guards and point of attack people. I think Yusuf is not going to do that. And same thing with Miles Turner. People keep talking about Miles Turner to Portland like this is definitely going to be a thing where we're going to give up a first and something with it to get him. The problem is Miles Turner is a rim protecting pick and pop center, and we've never been able to utilize any of that. I mean, Larry Nance is kind of a smaller version of pick and pop, and we can't use him correctly. So I just kind of wonder what the Blazers are looking for out of their center, because if it's not going to be a paint protecting, rim protecting big, and it's going to be some pick and pop thing, we're going to struggle defensively really bad. If it's not going to be a smaller guy like Larry Nance, who we're going to use as a small ball five, we're going to give up size. We give up size 1 through 3 already every single night. So I kind of have a lot of questions about how the Blazers want to build this roster. And I know that the front court is always an afterthought because the back court is always going to be either Damon CJ or Damon Powell. And you're going to be looking at 25 to 40 shots every single night. You're not going to look for an offensive hub in the center position. So I don't know, man. I have a lot of questions. I think they should try to go younger and cheaper at center and try to save money there.
Yep. I mean, you got to save money somewhere if you're going to bring Nurk back. If you were able to pull off a CJ for Jeremy Grant trade, then okay, you save $10 million a year. You're already paying Nurk 12. You give 5 of that back to him, and you're probably good. At 15, 16 mil, all right. Like I can see Nurk coming back for that if you get a Jeremy Grant at $20 million a year. Then you keep Powell and you still have Dame. I mean, you're good there. You get a power forward that can – because here's the other thing with this team, and this is one of the reasons that the center game is not so good when we hedge and we get away from the rim is the rotations are so bad.
Terrible.
They're so bad. And so Rocco and Powell and, as good defenders as they are, the rotations are not there. I don't know if it's a communication thing or honestly, I think we're so bad at the point of attack that you just can't recover quickly.
Yeah.
So getting a guy like Jeremy Grant who can hopefully make up for some of that with his athleticism and his speed and his length and the defensive ability, this is mind, how it works and reads. I mean, we thought that about Rocco, to be fair, but I think Jeremy Grant's on a different level than Rocco. I think he's better, obviously. It's more money. He's an all-star for a reason. So I think that's where you can afford to keep Nurk because you'll have a guy to maybe make up for more of it, and you can still use Nurk the way you want, and you save the money to bring him back. But if you don't move CJ, at this point, it's all a mute point. Like, it's going to be so tough to do anything with this team because you give him Powell money. Rocco, you're going to let go. And that's great. There's 12 mil. But then if you don't let Nurk go, you try to bring him back, it's just not going to work.
No, I'm with you. You got to save money somewhere. And now you're talking about Anthony Simons getting some ridiculous 3 years, 70 million, 60 plus million for 3 years type deal. Because we talked about it earlier. Guys who can score 40 points at will, which Anthony Simons is perfectly capable of doing. I mean, 2 games ago, not the Orlando game, but the game before that, he looked like he was going to go absolutely nuclear. I think he had 26 points at halftime or something like that. So somebody's going to want to pay that guy. And if it's not the Blazers, they're going to have to get creative with how they're going to fill the rest of the roster out behind Dame, CJ, and Nurk, because Rocco's on the block and he's in a contract year too.
Yep, agreed.
So
But
interesting
for
stuff.
now, we can enjoy seeing the Bosnian Beast, the Bosnian Bully doing his
Bosnian
thing.
Bully.
I'm all for it.
I love it.
Gonna look a little weird in 3 weeks from now when we really start talking about Morocco's as good as gone, but Nurk and Anthony are going to be the interesting trade pieces that we're going to talk about because we should trade CJ, but at the end of the day, the expiring contracts are in other places, and that still clears up money. So
yeah,
going to be interesting. That said, my man. So we get CJ back. We're about to get Powell back. Nance is going to be back eventually. So we have some other injuries, but you've gotten some good play, especially in this year. Little Dennis Smith has looked fine in stretches.
Yes.
Where do you see this team in the next couple of weeks? We're supposed to be tanking. We're supposed to be going down, and the only type of tank I'm seeing is just Sherman's just taking out D-Day, just blowing up Germans everywhere. I mean, we're just crushing people. Like it's not the way you're supposed to tank. It's the wrong kind of tank. Somebody got the wrong memo.
I honestly think the Blazers are going to do the same thing they've been doing for the last 2 weeks, which is kind of hang around, be kind of feisty against lower tier teams and win those games, and then against upper echelon teams like Denver give up 140 points and they're just going to steamroll you. So I think that we'll be right where we're at, which is like that 9-10 range. I don't foresee the Blazers just straight up tanking. It's not in the DNA of this team.
We would see it already, huh?
Exactly. We would already see it, but Chauncey's not going to deploy any strategy that's going to make him look bad because he has no job security now that Neal's gone. Cronin wants to do a really good job, so he's going to make, he says, aggressive trades. I don't know what kind of green light he's been given, but this team, they're built to compete, and that's what they've been told since day one this summer, and that's what they're going to continue to do. So I think we're going to keep seeing the same thing. It's not going to be a full out tank job, and if anybody wants that, don't watch because the Blazers are not going to tank.
No, they might not make the playoffs, and they'll get a mid-tier lottery pick. But I agree. They're not playing like they're going to tank, and they're just going to continue to get guys back and talent back on the roster, and they're going to continue to hang around. And it's just going to be really interesting to see how guys like Anthony perform and how Nurk perform now that CJ's back, now that the alpha's back on the team. I mean, Dame's Dame, but they have an alpha out there now. They have a guy that needs to have the ball in his hands. It's going to be really interesting. So,
that's a good point.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be something to watch. But it's been great to see Nurk play good. It's great to see Amph play good. I've been happy with seeing what I've seen from Nas, so I'm still liking what I'm seeing from the team so far.
Yeah,
I think the tank thing's starting to become a pipe dream from a few weeks ago.
Fans are always like quick to say, "Oh, we should just tank," and then they stop watching these teams. But think about season ticket holders and think about GMs, people that are employed around the team. They don't just get to turn the Blazers off when they're losing. There's no way that those people can be rooting for tanks. Season ticket holders have to retain value in their tickets, so they don't want the team to tank. I mean, I get the general mindset around tanking to get a good pick, but the NBA is a lottery system. There's no guarantee you're even going to get a top 5 pick out of tanking. And look, I love Chris Duarte as much as the next person, but do you think that he's going to be a championship level player? If you get that 8 through 12 range, you probably have a really low percentage of finding a franchise player at that spot. Yes, Dillon Brooks does exist, but what are your chances of finding them, and what's your bust rate there? So it's like, I know what Blazer fans want, and it's to be really good next year, but just because we are stinky this year doesn't automatically equate to a winning season next year and playoff run.
Agreed, because there's so many different changes you're going to have. You're probably not, even if you got a top pick, great. If you get a top pick, then guess what? You're probably not getting anything back in the trade, because if you're going to make it a big trade right now, you got to give a first round pickup to get anything worth it back, unless somebody's just all excited about CJ. That pick becomes pretty valuable now. Or you're getting rid of a guy like Anthony Simons. You're making a trade there. You're giving up some kind of major asset to get something back that's still going to be an unknown. Mm-hmm. You have no idea if you get a Jeremy Grant or a Miles Turner, if they're going to come back and be good, or if they're going to get hurt, or whatever the case is. They both have already been hurt this year. They're both on my fantasy basketball team. So let me tell you, the 2 number 1 trade targets of the Blazers have been out for multiple.
Durability
Turner's
issues.
About to go out for multiple weeks. I mean, there's no guarantees, and you're going to have to get rid of a lot of contracts to do that. So it's just, there's no way to guarantee, and tanking never ends well. Like I said, I mean, you're not going to be worse than the Magic at the end of the year. there's a lot of teams you're probably not going to be worse at come the end of the year. And the chances of you getting a top 5 pick are already slim. You'd have to really give up. Like, you'd have to be now. Like, you'd have to just say, screw it, Greg Brown, it is. Watford, you're going to go out and play 40 minutes a night and just good luck. And let's go. You know, it's just not going to happen. CJ and Powell, they're making money. They're going to play. That's how it's going to work. And they're not going to lose as many games as people want them to lose to tank. As much as I feel like it'd be great if we did, I just don't see it being a realistic possibility. And there's just never going to be any guarantee. People saying shut it down, let's retool and come back for next year. I've said those words, but the more you watch things, the less likely it's going to be. And then you think about what that could look like, and it's not always greener grass on the other side.
Yeah. We'll see. I actually low-key really like Trendon Watford's game. Have you been watching him?
I liked him when he was in the summer league. I think Watford's he's a
awesome.
mini Trent or Gary Trent to me.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean,
he just looks good. I've seen him play a lot. He's a little bigger. Great. I'd like to see Greg Brown get some minutes, but it's not going to happen for a while.
Too skinny.
CJ Ellaby's been
who?
Yeah. I don't look. Neil could draft guards. I'll give the guy that. Okay, you guys can hate Neil O'Shea all you want. That guy can draft some freaking guards, man. This has been this Anthony Simon stuff is. I honestly was asking myself, what's the ceiling? I think Danny Morang was asking himself, what's the ceiling? Like, can he be an all-star? I honestly don't know. But this has been a wild run for Anthony Simon's career run. So good for him.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, like I said, to see how he plays with CJ when he's not the guy getting, 20 plus shots or 15 plus shots a night. 11
threes per game.
He's gonna have to keep shooting the 3-ball well, and that's what it's gonna come down to.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, there's no other segments that we do every single week, right? So what else do you have? Oh, wait, what? There is?
I know. I waited till the very end. I'm not sure if we were gonna get to it, but I feel like the people deserve to know.
We're getting to it.
Yeah, I feel like people deserve to know about Blazers past, because you forget about a lot of our Blazers past. And this week, I got one of those bigs that have been coming on, one of the Greg Browns of the world, those guys that you draft late and you pray for the best, and they made a decent NBA career from themselves. Dante Cunningham, he's the guy. There he is. Look at him. Played with, I believe he's been with the Pelicans. He's been all over the freaking place. But now he is in France. That was terrible. But he plays for the French Basketball Championship League. I'm going to probably say it wrong, but Le Mans. I don't know.
Okay.
So he's in Europe. He's over there with, who else did they say is in the French Basketball League? He said Thon Maker, Sean Kilpatrick, Anthony Bennett. Remember the overall number one pick back in the day? Yeah, that guy. Wow. So he's over in Europe now, so good for him. I wish him all the best. Again, 30-something years old. He kind of ended his NBA career. He's able to go do good things in Europe. So Dante Cunningham played for the Blazers for a little while there. It's kind of a power forward that never really panned out for us, but ended up doing pretty decent with some of the teams he was on after us.
I like Dante Cunningham. I thought he played well for the Blazers and kind of filled a weird role, an underrated role in the NBA, which is kind of just
backup, cleanup, hustle bigs.
Cleanup, hustle big, exactly. Like not a flashy, like sexy position to play, but ugly minutes, come in, do your job. Cody Zeller would do that if he could ever stay healthy.
Yeah, we talked about his health at the beginning of the year. We'll get into that later. All right, man. That's all I got for this week. Anything else you want to add?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered everything that we need to cover. Please let us know if there's anything else you'd like to see from old Rip City Real Talk. Like we said, we're going to change it up a little bit. We will have some film sessions coming up over the next couple weeks, so we're going to be incorporating more film into our breakdown. So if you're not following us on YouTube or subbed on YouTube, you should be. If you're listening audio only, go sub on the YouTube. And then also follow along at twitter.com/talkrip. Engage with us. We do a lot on Twitter, a lot more during games typically, but hit us up.
Yeah, we appreciate the support. We know it's been a while since our last one. So again, our times will be kind of all over the place, but look out for us. We're going to, when things are relevant, we're going to continue to cover this team, give you guys the content that we're known for, and continue that.
Absolutely. And just like that, we out.